Sito. I'm the managing director of Vodacom Tanzania, and we're really fortunate this afternoon to be joined by a tie-wearing man. I always feel when I sit next to someone wearing a tie, I must behave myself. So I'll try and behave, but we're joined by Mihayo Wilmore, who currently serves as the digital advisor for Monanchi Communications, as well as, that's not the only thing he does. He's also on...
I think what it means is, and I'm humbled by the description, but what it means really is you demystify what technology is. I remember I was sitting in a meeting, a government meeting, with people who were really novices in what networks are.
Right.
But we all have networks in our homes. When you open the water in your bathroom, there's a network of pipes that interconnect that. So when you talk about CCOM and you talk about how Vodacom is redistributing internet on 4G, that's really a network. You are sitting at the end of the faucet, and that water is somehow flowing all over.
And I think the intriguing thing about technology is it's always fast moving. How do you maintain your passion in this? How do you sort of stay relevant in your interest and your passion in tech? Where does that come from?
I think I would say it came from my upbringing. I think science was the easiest subject for me to grasp. My parents moved to Zimbabwe when I was about 7, and I started first grade there. I didn't speak Shona, I didn't speak English. I spoke Swahili. So the only thing I could understand really easily was numbers. And then we were lucky enough in 1984 to have a computer in the house, because my dad was using the computer to do work. So that meant that I had a competitive advantage over other kids in Harare at the time that were using computers. So for me, that just became that competitive advantage that even when I was in school in Tanzania, in high school, you know, we always had a PC magazine there. Yeah. So I'm always online, I'm always searching. And of course they say that the knowledge that we should give to our kids today is not to memorize, but the ability to look for more information in different places, including libraries and online. So for me, it's really something that sets me apart from other people.
Right.
And being a technologist is just a plus. I just love it, you know. Nice. It drives me.
Wow, okay, thanks. And Rosalind, you know, I've written emails to you and you've responded to those, and at the bottom of Rosalind's emails, you have a tagline that says "Lead with Purpose," and I know you're heavily sort of involved in kind of marginalized groups and building inclusivity, etc. What role do you believe technology can play, or sort of has played in serving these needs of the marginalized and sort of building inclusivity?
Very good question, Cito. Thank you very much. And I think right off the bat, it's worth mentioning my very strong belief that I live by, which is really thriving where you are planted. And if you take it up a notch, this is really the essence of our Africa.Connected comms campaign, for example, here at Vodacom, where in line with what Mihai was saying, the analogy around water, within the Africa.Connected campaign, we believe that there are multiple stakeholders and players who each have a part to play to make this innovation ecosystem thrive. So when you talk about technology, when you talk about a communications company like Vodacom, we have a part to play, especially when you discuss marginalized communities. And tech is an enabler, tech is an accelerator, and that is where we plug ourselves, right? And the campaign itself thrives in plugging into that gap for purposes of making those marginalized communities thrive in different sections, right? So, and what is it plugging? It's plugging itself between what are the conversations that we're having, the various stakeholders whom each has a part to play, looks at what is the opportunity and what is the solution, and therefore we plug into this space with spectrum, for example, resources, innovations around health, around education, because these are segments of the economy where you find the marginalized members of our community sitting.
Wow.
The thing is, we believe very strongly that we cannot afford to leave anyone behind, and therefore we innovate into those spaces where an opportunity presents itself to bring everyone along, because it makes for a better society at the end of the day when everyone has come along. So there you see multiple activations within what technology can offer, specifically what at Vodacom we've been able to do in education, in agriculture. We innovate in order to bring everyone along.
Wow, that's awesome. And let's turn our attention a little now to Innovation Week. I find the concept just exciting. I love the unique way it's done in Tanzania. And but as we gear up to Innovation Week and just all the engagement that will happen with all the stakeholders across the spectrum, let me maybe just pause. And you've both been involved in Innovation Weeks in years before, and I'd be really curious if we were to stop and pause and reflect from, say, last year.
Yes.
What are some of the lessons that you took away from last year's Innovation Week? And Mihai, maybe I'll start with you. I'll come back to you on that same question, Rosalind. But what are some of the lessons you took from last year's Innovation Week?
I mean, from last year, I think we were more talking. We were engaging. We were educating each other. There was concepts out there that we wanted to take advantage of, AI, blah, 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 ML, etc. And those lessons, I think, are deep set, where we've seen, for example, from HDIF, we've moved to Funguo. Now, what does Funguo bring? Funguo is bringing around fintech. So that's the big elephant in the room. How do we conquer fintech? M-Pesa has done a wonderful job. Now, how do we then use the M-Pesa as pipelines to then boost the mobile economy? And I think that's where we are now.
Right.
If we look at in terms progressionally, yes, peer-to-peer transfers. But for example, Mwananchi is working very closely with Vodacom on some new innovations around the Vodacom app. How do we fill that space? How do we give Tanzanians more value for their data connection? Hootsuite says that about 31% of the people are happy with the content that they have. Okay, but what about the 69% that are unhappy? You've done a wonderful job in creating the pipe, but then how do we bring in the film industry? How do we bring in? So I think that was the discussion last year. I think now we're seeing, especially from the government side, a lot of initiatives in terms of actually execution. So this Innovation Week, for me, what I'm looking forward to is a discussion around execution. How do we execute? We talked about 4G. Where's 4G on the map?
And I'll come to that, because I know you made some thoughts and sort of comments around 5G, fourth industrial revolution as well, and I want to pick up on that. Rosalind, your view of last year's Innovation Week?
It was a brilliant 1 week that we spent here in Dar es Salaam, and I know this year we're going to be partly in Dar and in Dodoma, which makes it even more exciting. It means we're getting the conversation closer and closer to the important stakeholders that need to continue being a part of this, right? So for us, for me at Vodacom specifically, if I look at what we did with the digital accelerator, Vodacom's digital accelerator, which is now going into its second cohort, its second phase, taking lessons and ideas and brainstormed ideas that came up during last year's Innovation Week, applying them, embedding them into the second cohort and drawing more value from all of that. So for me, it's really the discussions that were very important to be held, widening the ecosystem, getting everyone to understand what each one has to play as their part. And one that really stands out for us is really the digital accelerator, which we've seen now going into its second phase.
Wow. And I think, Mihayo, you mentioned earlier, and I liked that analogy of keeping things simple. When we talk technology and innovation, and it sort of gets into buzzwords. I'm going to put each of you now, not on the spot per se, but I want to ask you in simple terms, when you sort of look forward to saying, look, let's digitize Tanzania, and we use words like that, what developments in digital connectivity or sort of in the digital space or tech developments are you most looking forward to? What are the things that you could maybe pick one or two things and say, look, I think that for me would be something I'm really seeing coming up in maybe months to come or years to come within the Tanzania concept. I was on you, so I'll go with ladies first still, Rosalind. Give me a couple and then I'll come across Mihayo to you.
Thank you. I'm going to keep it very simple, and you might not believe this, Sito. So the one thing that I really look forward to is how we can use simple technologies that exist, and also leveraging, or rather speaking about the digital divide that is already there, SMS, right?
Okay.
So using SMS for good, for example, because we know, and you put it quite rightly, that there are, in the Tanzania context, so our context here today is one that speaks to there being a digital divide insofar as those that have access to data and those that don't, which means when we apply ourselves to innovate products, solutions that go to democratize social services, for example, we must think of a technology that is accessible for all.
Right.
And there, it's really SMS for now.
Okay.
Yes, there are certain things that are being done that we're all a part of that are going to get us further quicker, but today we're sitting with SMSs and access to SMS platforms. So innovations in that space from the grassroots up will take us further quicker and include everyone. And quite exciting is what has happened within Vodacom that I can speak of quite confidently, which is the M-Mama solution that uses SMS, uses 2G voice calls to help save a life of a mother in need, and make sure that mothers in today's world give birth to their young ones and not run the risk of losing their lives in the process. It should not happen. So those kinds of innovation are quite exciting. And collaboration, it's a beautiful collaboration, our M-Mama solution. It's a beautiful collaboration between government and private sector. Right, where you have the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Local Government working with the private sector technology provider to further capacitate their own systems, to build resilience to the emergency response systems that already exist on the ground.
Okay, I love that. You've taken one which is, when you said SMS, I kind of said, I said technology, I said advancement, and it felt like you're going backwards, but actually it's so true. The very technology we have can be used for greater good in terms of as we build on that. Thanks, Rosalind. Mihayo?
I think I would say, I agree with SMS. SMS is here to stay. There's a lot of functionality that is needed in terms of SMS, even as a reminder service that, get up, go to work. But for me, I'm always thinking on the other side of the hill.
Take us there.
I'm interested in maybe two pillars. One is around agriculture and the other one is around health.
Right.
But health more high tech, but then more so from an enterprise perspective, meaning that it is not necessarily the individual Tanzanian consumer, but rather the entity that is facilitating that service.
Okay.
I'm thinking health and AI, and tech and AI, agriculture and AI. What do I mean by this? Recognition. If we look at, for example, a disease such as cancer, AI has the ability to read a CT scan and determine whether a woman or a person has cancer or a man has cancer, prostate or breast cancer, up to an efficiency of about 88%. Humans, on the other hand, with double checking, I check and then you check, second doctor check, is sitting at about 67%. So you're sitting there with a lot of misdiagnosis. I'm sure from you, from a revenue perspective, you don't want a 66% revenue assurance
not at all.
report. You want somewhere between 90 and 99. And considering the color of our skin, a lot of this work is being done in Europe. So I know there's some guys at Muhimbili University here in Dar es Salaam that are working on breast cancer. And I think that's a very critical space that we need to be in terms of building that capacity, in terms of using AI to recognize different diseases. There are certain diseases that are unique to us, such as sickle cell.
Yes,
The way cancer affects us is very different. And if we can utilize AI, so now that's partners such as yourself, Vodacom, sitting with the medical industry, giving them the connectivity needed for them to connect to those data service. You also have a wonderful data center, you know, giving them some of that processing power, excess processing power for them to crunch those numbers. The same thing with agriculture. You know, imagine a farmer sitting somewhere in Makete. They can take a picture of their plant that's shriveling up. Yes, it's getting water, it's getting sunlight, it's getting fertilizer, but something is happening to that plant. And they need that advice. They post it onto a portal, that someone comes back with an expertise. The other technology that I think is very underrated is IVR.
Okay.
We have been very excited about SMS, about USSD, about data, but literacy is a problem. So being able to call in, I remember when I was in the US in college, one of the things that we saw, one of the things that amazed me is that you could call in and check your bank balance by saying press 1, press 2, press 3.
Right.
Why isn't that happening in Africa or in Tanzania for that matter? You know, now with the cost of voice being pretty low, I think that's a great vast service that can be rolled out to people in terms of voice response systems.
That's really exciting. It's really exciting. And I think this is what we often miss, because we'll think high tech, we'll start to talk about autonomous driving vehicles, etc. But actually there's all these closer to home use cases of what technological advancement can bring us. And Mihayo, the team dug through the archives for me because I wasn't at last year's Innovation Week, and I'm told that last year during a Vodacom event at Innovation Week, you spoke about quite excitedly the fourth industrial revolution.
Yes.
You spoke about 5G and the possibilities that tech could bring. Let me take us a year forward.
Yes.
And in the time since you sort of spoke about that and what you'd have said in there, what have you seen happening in Tanzania? If you were to rate the scale or the pace of movement a year ago from what you saw, and how would you rate that so far?
I think as of 4 weeks ago, I think we're on track. We're on track to building a fourth or fifth industrial revolution in Tanzania. I'll keep my disappointment to the end because it involves you.
Right.
But I think we within the ecosystem, we've created the right chemistry between government and between private sector, between players. You're seeing a lot of interactions. You're seeing a lot of good appointments by the president in terms of key functions, in terms of the ICT Commission, TCRA, et cetera, et cetera. Then that's all coming together very well. But what really excited me was on Mama Samia's trip in the US.
Yes.
One of the key people that she ran into or she had a meeting was a tech company.
Right.
So which is also exciting because then they're bringing in competition, competition is healthy. It will get Vodacom to step up. But in addition to that, based on rumors, when I'm not a gossip, I'm a tech gossip. Based on rumors, I'm hearing that you guys are also pushing forward an agenda towards the 4G in terms of urban to rural, rural to urban, which is extremely exciting because it means that with better piping, you know, it's like when you're building your house. We started with those old metal pipes, right? The cast iron pipes.
Yes.
Now we have these plastic green pipes that last 50 years.
Yeah.
So as we're moving to LTE and to 4G and to 5G, this is extremely exciting because you're saying, oh no, there's a lot of people online that they're saying, we're good with 2G. Tanzania only needs 3G. But I remember sitting in your position as a regional VAS manager.
Yes.
And I was trying to build a business case for Tanzania to have WiMAX. and 3G.
Okay.
And
okay.
the guys at HQ were saying, no, 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 it's okay. You only need 56 kilobits per second.
Right.
But if we had agreed to that 5 years ago
Right.
or 12
I think
years
would be
ago,
further.
where would we be today?
Right.
So I think in terms of pricing also, I think the pricing is good.
Yeah.
I've seen the reports in terms of where Tanzania is positioned in terms of data bundles and pricing. So it means that affordability, accessibility, and now the issue is really availability and how consumers will consume.
Right.
Overall, I think I'm really happy. We've had a little hiccups here and there, but I think you guys have managed to resolve them amicably.
So Mihai, let me put you in my day-to-day seat.
Yes.
And maybe others, not just Vodacom, but broader the telco
Yes.
industry and you know all the players in the space. What do you believe we could do more or should be doing more to really fuel and kind of drive the digital development and the innovation space in Tanzania? I
think what is lacking, and of course Silicon Valley wasn't built in a day.
Yeah.
But what I feel, if I was in your seat, or even on the other side, the equivalent of you on the government side, the one place I think that we would be able to coexist well is within a sandbox of developing new technologies.
Okay.
Whether it is NFT, AI, machine learning, etc. If we had a petri dish, so to speak, where we could just dump money in and say, okay, Vodacom is going to put in incubation seed funding for maybe 16 incubatees, but the problems we want them to solve that are Vodacom related is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right.
And I think that will be really exciting.
Right.
Because I think the biggest disappointment for a lot of innovators is that, one, it's very difficult that on one hand we're convincing you to commercialize with us.
Okay.
And then I build that trust with you.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, I need to go on the TCRA side, the government side, and the BRELA side to get all of this. So a concession of sorts whereby we create an innovation export zone, like almost like a EPZ.
Yeah. No, I got you.
For
Yeah.
IT,
Yes.
whereby we're sitting in a place whereby we're allowed to play and we're allowed to experiment, and it's cost effective, because right now is that I'm buying my own servers, I'm doing all of this, and then at the end of the day I want to connect to you,
Right.
and then you're telling me there's all this red tape,
There's
and
all
then on this other side TCRA is telling me I need you to get this license and that license, and then the banks, of course, you need to help us to convince the banks that I am bankable. Because I can tell you from my own personal experience, I actually had to put up my own personal property to actually finance a project. That doesn't happen in the US.
Yeah.
You've got Amex, you've got this,
Yeah.
you've got that, you've got this venture capital funds, etc. But I'm aware it's not all loom and gloom.
Yeah.
But if you could hold our hands
Yes.
as a big brother and pull us up and say, we trust in what these young innovators are doing. And some of us are not young anymore.
Yeah.
I turned 45 last week,
Yeah.
and I'm still considered a startup.
Startup. Yeah.
I can't be a startup for 10 years.
Mihaya, that's I love your passion, and everything in me wants to try and give a response to some of that. But actually, this is what I like about Innovation Week. This is what I like about what we're going to do, which is engage and listen. I'm in listening mode, and so thank you for those comments. And so we'll be going through the rest of the week and engaging and really listening, and only starting to try and craft things together as we go rather than predetermined responses. So I'm going to leave your comments there, almost unanswered. And Rosalind, just maybe in a minute, we're kind of running out of time. Miha's kind of talked about what he thinks tech companies can do. What do you think the government can do, and policymakers in general, to speed up the journey we're on?
Absolutely. I think just to piggyback on what Mihai was speaking about, there's a lot of positive conversation that is happening. There's a lot of action that is happening within Tanzania in our context, right? So, the wheel is turning, and I think having a proper blueprint that points us to a strategic direction that would start answering some of the things that he's raising. For example, which innovations do we need, because of what purposes, and how, through policy making, can we support, like in a sandbox environment, that to happen. So one for me is a clear blueprint for digital. We seem to be still working in silos. We all agree that technology is an enabler in agriculture, in education, in all these economic segments of Tanzania. But how does it all speak to one another? So that would be a clear place to go to.
Excellent.
But Sito, before you run, I
Yes,
see you trying
yes.
to wrap this up.
We do. We only have 3 minutes left.
Well,
or
so
2 minutes.
not too quick.
Yes, talk to me.
There's a big elephant in the room.
Ah,
Yes.
Okay.
And you know the nature, with elephants, we must talk about, them being in the room where they shouldn't be.
yeah.
And that one elephant is the announcement that came out
Yeah.
yesterday.
Yeah.
It said that you are stepping down and away.
Yeah.
How are we still going to be a part of this digital innovation journey in Tanzania with you gone? You've been our captain.
Yeah, so Rosalind, thanks. That is an elephant in the room. And I've always said, mimi ninatoka Zimbabwe, but I really much have felt that mimi ni Mtanzania, and I've enjoyed just the journey here and what we've had here. In reality, sometimes events don't always turn out according to your scheduled plans. And so really I'm being reassigned to South Africa to lead the Vodacom South Africa, which is a part of Vodacom Group, so that keeps Vodacom Group fairly strong. But Rosalind, I'll say this, and by the way, just to say, I will stay as a board member of Vodacom Tanzania, so very much still a part of the team and a part of the group, which is what makes us strong. But the reality is that our strategy is enduring. And that's the phenomenal thing about being at Vodacom. We are an amazing team. The Exco team, the teams all across Vodacom have been running and driving the strategy. We're a purpose-led organization, digital inclusion for all. These are some of our pillars. They endure way beyond Sito and will continue to do so. And I'll enjoy really shaping that as part of a non-executive board member and remain on the board of Vodacom Tanzania. So that's really where that is. But thank you very much. Appreciate all, and we'll see you during Innovation Week.